Hello everybody. As some of you may or may not know, we applied to the Series 5 of BattleBots with a robot called Winston Churchkill. We were successful in our application, we were all ready to go, we'd built the robot, we were just getting the crate, we were a few days away from sending it when the international lockdowns and travel bans happened. Obviously that series was postponed and ended up being the very fun and very successful Series 5 that Endgame ended up winning. However, there were very few international teams at that, and we were one of the ones that was unable to go. The robot was fully built and ready to go at the time that the travel bans came into place, and it's just been sitting in my shed since. I thought you might be interested in seeing the build diary for that robot. We built it from scratch, although it was modelled on a previous robot that I've competed with in the UK. When applications for the new series opened, we applied with a rebranded robot. Given the pandemic and that most of my team worked as medical professionals throughout it, we rebranded it as SLAMbulance. However, unfortunately, due to the competitive nature of this year's season, we weren't successful in that application. We wish everyone who did get in this year the very best of luck. We are looking forward to watching this. We think it's going to be another great season. It's going to be one of the most competitive. We're looking forward to watching this on TV as fans when it comes out, and we're hoping to compete this robot in whatever guise we end up running it as in the UK shows when they start again. I thought you might be interested in seeing the build video. Hopefully it's interesting. Leave any comments and I'll try and answer them. Cheers!
So it's a cold Tuesday in January. I've just finished a set of nights, so I've got some time off now. So I'm back in the shed with old Donald, who's under there, Trees of Mayhem, and new Donald, who I'm measuring, because that's who we're basing the new robot off, Winston Churchkill. So I've got this here, which is the sort of wooden cardboard model that I used to make Donald3, which we've been using at live shows in the UK. It's done pretty well, but there's a few things I'd like to change about it. So the bar doesn't have enough reach. You see, the bar doesn't reach further forward than the wedge I've got at the front. So I'd like to fix that. And a few things here. I think we could be a bit more compact with the motors. I'd like to double the wheels up, add plastic on the side, thicker plastic on the front, and change the horns as well, because they often get pranged by my own spinner and rips it apart. So I've been CADing is the word I use, cardboard aided design, the old prototype for Donald into the new prototype for Winston. So I've made the spikes here shorter so that the weapon sticks just out the top a little bit, so that it can still run both ways up using the wheels that are sticking out the back. So it sits on the wheels and just on the tip of those spikes and can still drive around. But because the bar sticks out the top, hopefully it'll hit the ground and ping itself back onto its wheels. So I hope there's enough sticking out for it to do that, but that might be the sort of thing that we find out in the arena, whether or not it works. We've got a wedge on the front as well, and I'm also trying moving. You'll see the difference between this and the original one is that this bar sits about 4 inches further forward, which means that we get more reach. It reaches out beyond the front of the robot, which means that we don't have to get someone on the ramp before we start doing damage to them. Again, that's going to change the whole balance of the thing, because we've got the wheels very far back as it is, right at the back of the robot. So moving that big heavy spinner even further forward is going to change the centre of balance. Hopefully it'll be worth it, but again, you can't really work that out with cardboard. You've just got to build it and see. I mean, probably other people can do it in CAD, but I can't. I've just got to build it and see. So I'm just looking at Donald. It's quite nice. I've got my own prototype for the new robot. I'm wondering how much space I've got to double up the tyres in here. So I'm just going to take this out and then see if I've got room to move this motor over. Get that wire out the way. That's the wire for the big LEM motor. So normally this drive motor goes in there, up against that gear there, quite hard to see. But if I I've got my link and things in here, which is on a piece of metal, but there's actually quite a bit of room to go that way. So if I make sure that metal's not in the next robot, I can turn that motor around so those contacts aren't going to be down there. And it's going to be tight, but I think I'm going to have room to double up that wheel, and then this wheel over here, yeah, there's loads of space there, so that's fine. So good, I think we'll be able to go to double wheels, because, like I said, the centre of gravity is so far back, because we've got the, you know, if you look at the axle of the wheels, the axles are here, and look what we've got behind it, just a thin strip of metal, and what have we got in front of it? All the batteries, this LEM that weighs about 16 kilos, which is like 30 pounds, and the spinner, which is, again, same sort of weight. Then we've got all the metal and plastic on the front, and then this wedge all the way out the front, so the whole thing wants to go that way, because the pivot's here. If the wheels are in about here, that would be the centre of balance there, but they're not, they're right at the back, so we haven't got very much grip on the wheels, so I think I'm going to at least, ideally I'd make it four-wheel drive, but sticking with this design, there isn't really room. I suppose you could fit another one in. There isn't really room. You could have one sort of sticking out the front a bit, if you put one just in front and then had it driving both of them. I mean, you could do that, but it would be sort of protruding slightly out of here. Might be worth it, but might not. I think it's going to be easier and just as effective to have double, you know, just double up the wheels on the inside so that you get twice as much grip. But obviously it's all your eggs in one basket if something goes wrong with that wheel then. But we definitely got room to do that, so I think we'll do that. We'll move it in, and worst case we can just make the robot a little bit smaller. Might save us some weight so we can put four-wheel drive on. Again, you'll know what we're actually going to do in reality, but I don't yet. Lovely. So next thing I think to do is get to CAD and CAD this up, get it cut in wood again to make sure that there's nothing I've forgotten, no obvious things. Put it together, if that works, get it cut in metal. Hi, so we're in the Extreme Robots workshop that John has kindly let me use for the day. I'm plasma cutting at the moment some parts, so I've got the old robot here, from which I'm taking measurements and then cutting them, putting them on the computer, and then plasma cutting them on the CNC plasma cutter, which just makes things a lot easier and quicker. At the moment, what I'm doing is getting these cuts very hot, so I won't touch them. Those are these bits that support the motor and hold the wheel up on the other side. I'm getting them cut on this. The sizing's a little bit off, but I've worked it out now. And then I'm going to start cutting all the panels and the thicker bulkheads that the motor screws onto and the weapon goes through. Yeah, much easier than doing it with a drill and an angle grinder. Just got the base plate cut. Oh, lovely. Looks like a stealth bomber. Shame the rest of the robot doesn't. So I'm in Mark's shed with the dogs. Abby? Abby? Oh, yes. And we are putting together the frame of the robot. So we've got these, which are the what will support the motor and the wheels. We're cleaning up all the other bits of metal. And putting it all together. This is what it'll look like. And then that'll get welded in there, and then the wheels will go here. I'll show you it when it's done, make more sense then. And then we've got the bulkheads. Yeah. That are heavy, they're 5mm, they're going to go there, 2 of them to support the motor and support the weapon. It's coming together, looking pretty good. Yeah, I'll give you an update in a few minutes or right now. Pretty horrific weather outside that we're in here. Luckily, although it is raining a bit in here in places. Got this new second-hand motor. I'm going to take the one from Donald as a spare, but this one's a bit, more circular, runs a bit smoother. But we'll take that one as a spare. I've messed around with this one and put pins all the way through it to make it a bit stronger. So we'll take that. We're going to be doubling up the wheels in this robot, so we have twice as much traction. Some of these holes aren't very accurate on this, but we're going to have to clean them up now. It's quite a bit of clearance as well. Yeah. It's half an inch of clearance. Loads. Yep. Can't argue with that. So, look, I'm laying stuff out now just to see, sort of moment of truth, make sure everything still fits. It just about does. I've made this a lot wider than it was in my last one, so that I can accommodate for double wheels, but it means I've had to push the motor this way, which means it's just all a little bit more cramped around here, but that's okay. So, I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do it yet, but I got this is the speed controller, so that does the, controls the power to the wheels, or the motors that are connected to the wheels. Then we've got a load of batteries here that will power the spinner, and then we've got the slightly smaller battery pack here that will power the speed controller, which will put the power to the motors, which will power the wheels. And it just about all fits in. When I was running it at Robot Wars, I had this configuration, double 4 of each battery. When I went to the live shows, just to save it when the batteries went up, and because I wasn't having so long fights and I wasn't running the weapon at full speed, I took half the batteries out, so I was running the weapon on half power, and I was running the drive on half the milliamp hours, so it wouldn't last as long, but that was fine for the live shows. But I'm going to go back to full power for BattleBots, so I'm just trying to work out again how to cram it all in. I've got this motor just spacing it out, and I can just about fit these batteries in there. I think it will fit. I may have to end up putting this speed controller down here, because that fits fine there. I've made this cut out in the back because I've been able to move the mount for the motor has gone forward into this position, which means I've got a bit more space at the back, so I've cut this out so that we've still got the support for the lid, but I've got a bit of space for things like wiring, is what I was expecting to use it for, but actually the speed controller fits in there quite nicely. Only problem is, this is where the spinner goes, so if there's a bit of debris that I pick up at that end and bring it round, I might smash it into the speed controller and cause myself loads of damage, but I don't know, I think it's unlikely, because you won't be catching stuff here,
you'll be catching stuff down there and sending it that way, as opposed to catching it here and bringing it that way. Yeah. But like I say, I'm going to try and put it up here so it's completely out of the way and all neatly under this one panel. But if these turn out to be a bit bigger with the batteries actually in there, or the wires make it difficult, I've got that option there. And then obviously you might be thinking, why don't I just put stuff on this side? That's because the motor, the big drive motor, the LEM, is going here. Something like that, out to about there. And then we've got the drive motor here, so there is a bit of space in here for batteries and things like that. Again, I could do that and have it wired in so that you have some batteries over here and some batteries over there. Yeah, I could do that. I'd rather not, but it's an option. So we're getting there. Got the front on now. Using this old bar just to sort of see how it looks. Might not be able to show you this. Because what I've done, as I said before, I've moved the mounting point forwards. Oh, you can't really tell, can you? So the next thing to do, I've just got a bit more welding on these side pieces to make sure they're all fixed on, and then I'm going to start cutting the metal for the back. Put that on. Then we'll make sure that the lids fit, and then that's the monocoque done. Then it's about making sure all the bits fit, making sure the gears mesh, making it easy to get into and out of. Wicked.
So, this video is not robot related, it's chair related, but I thought you guys might be able to cast some light on it. I found this chair where I work in a hospital, and it's curious because the right armrest slides backwards but is spring loaded, so it snaps forwards. Obviously quite a bit of thought and design and build has gone into this, but I can't work out for what purpose. It's spring loaded. It has a screw screwed horizontally into the front of it with a washer on it, but that screw is not adjustable, and I can't see anything that it adjusts or affects. When you slide it back, it reveals this box section, which is just part of the chair, and there's nothing in the box section. The box section is not altered in any way. I played with it for ages, asked everybody I saw. No one could think of what it could possibly be. I wondered if any of you intelligent, engineering-minded people might have any better ideas as to what function this may serve.
I'm back at the workshop. Storm Clara's gone, but it's Storm Dennis that we've got to worry about now. That's the one that's lashing the roof today. So, we're a week on. I've got Teresa Mayhem here. She's donating some parts, the motors and things, just while I've got some others on order. Everything's pretty much how we left it last time. Mark's been busy doing some machining, so he's made some motor plates. The faces of these motors were aluminium. They were a bit sort of brittle and rubbish, so when they took a big hit, they'd crack along the bolt lines, and then they'd come off, and then the motor would sort of fall apart, fall into pieces, and then it's no good. And I've only got two motors, one on each side of this robot, so when one goes, you can't really drive anymore. So he's managed to make a few out of steel. Need to drill the holes in to mount them onto into the robot, but they look lovely. Got a few spares as well. We've machined the shaft down, so that's a little bit smaller. I think it's 48mm instead of 50mm, but that's still plenty. That'll fit the bearing, and then the bearings, we've made these bushes. They're going to go in here, so that this sits nice and snug on that. This is a dead axle, so it's the axle itself is not live. It won't be turning. The bearings will spin on that with the spinner in it. Cool. So what I'm looking at now is this big motor. Oh, we've also got these wheels. We've been making some plates to go in between them so that we can run two wheels without the wheels sliding on each other. So that's good as well. Haven't tested them yet though. That'll be the big moment. What I'm looking at now is the big motor that powers the weaponry. This is the old one. I've got the newer one is over there. So I'm just stripping this one down to have a look at whether we can make this case a little bit stronger, because That's often the weak point on these that I've found, is that the two surfaces collapse into each other and pinch the bit that turns the armature. So that's what I'm going to be looking at today, see if we can work that out. Got to be close not to get my phone too close to this, because there's some pretty powerful magnets in this motor. But what I've done before is put these threaded bars through with little tubes of aluminium on the top, as sort of a spacer to keep the two plates apart. It's alright, but like the aluminium gets smashed and then all the threads come off the rods. So see if I can think of a better solution for this. The case is looking a bit battered. Yeah, there's quite a bit there. I'm wondering about drilling through that and bolting the case on so that it can't slide apart or twist around. That's British sign language for twist around and then slide apart. So we'll have a look at that now. Week 3 or something, I don't know. It's like our 7th day working on this, or 6th or 7th day working on it, and it's starting to look like a robot now. So we've got this, which my good friend Tom from Starebox cut. It's a solid oak. I believe it's the first, but correct me if I'm wrong. Solid oak spinning bar. It's 40mm thick and the size of the real bar that's been worked out so that hopefully it centres around this point weight-wise, so that when it spins it doesn't wobble and destroy itself. So I got this cut by him because he's a mate and can do it cheaper than out of steel, and I didn't want to get it cut out of steel and then find out that it was unbalanced or slightly too long or had the holes in the wrong place or something like that. So we put that in and it worked really well. So I got this real one cut. So this is the steel version. It's on there now and it looks pretty fine. Spins nicely, has a little bit of clearance there but not too much. We've got the counterweight that gives it the makes it like a flywheel, gives it the inertia to blast it through, because of course it's not the motor really that's giving the power to cut through the other robots, it's the energy that you store in the big heavy weapon that wants to keep moving through another robot. So that's all there. That's what that there is doing, and then this is the long end, and that's what does the impact. So that should come up pretty much horizontal where it's going to hit a robot, or about 45 degrees, and F them up. We've got the pulleys on; they're already in. Mark's got them in with the keys. They're keyed in. And that gearing should give us about 195, sorry, I missed out a crucial 195 miles an hour on the tip. Now let's have a look here how much, when we sit upside down, so I'm not sure whether that'll protrude or not. That definitely won't, but whether this end will just touch the ground and bump us back over. There's probably a clever way to work that out, but I am not aware of it. So I've just made it so there's about 10mm or something, quarter of an inch, half an inch, sticking out, and I'm hoping that that'll death roll itself back onto its wheels if we go upside down. But I don't know, and that's something we need to test, but I don't really know how to test that because it sounds pretty dangerous. But that's something we can look at. That's something we'll be looking at today. We've also got to work on the wheels, making sure that they spin freely. We've also, what else are we doing today? I've got all the batteries, and they're in there. Made all their boxes. So we'll work out where they're going to go. Got a lot in there. Need to buy some more though. You never got enough. And I think today we could fit some electronics as well and potentially power it up. But let's see how we get on. the belt's slackened, I think.
Well, I'll get some belts sorted out for this week. Get that pulley made.
Okay, it's another day, and we're back with Winston Churchkill, with Theresa May and Donald3. Keeping a keen eye on things. Look, I've got everything out now. Most of it's waiting over there, some of it's in the box. And I'm welding up all the internal seams, because we are shipping in 7 days.
Wrong.
Which is horrific. I haven't even booked a pallet, I haven't bought a pallet, I haven't booked the courier. I'm looking at getting insurance now because it sounds like coronavirus is a pretty big deal at this stage in proceedings.
No shit.
So, assuming that we do go ahead, I've got everything out. I'm doing the inside welds because next week I want to have everything ready for next week. We're going to do a test. I'm working nights, so I've got Friday off after my night. So I'll come here, we'll do a test. Hopefully it'll be fine, but if it all blows up, then we've got Friday day, Saturday and Sunday to fix it and put it in a crate and ship it to America. Sounds pretty nuts, and I think it is pretty nuts. So, we've got all these in now, pretty happy with these. They go either side of the weapon batteries, the speed controller, and then the drive batteries are at the back here. And they're just sort of some uprights with a little captive nut and a piece of metal across the top. The bolts in, pushes down on top of them. They're all surrounded by this sort of hard, like yoga mat foam sort of thing, so it digs into that and they don't move. I think that looks pretty nice. I think it'll work, but we'll see. I've got rid of all the belts that I used to have, which is the benchmark for me, so we'll see if this is any better. Need to take this motor out and do what I did to the other one to sort of ruggedise it a little bit and do all the welding. Need to fix the soldering. I've got my front wedge on now. I've only tacked it in place because I haven't got the bar is at the machinist's, so you can do the axle for the bar. So when I've got that back, I'll make sure that there's enough clearance on the back of this. Then I'll weld it in place, put a bottom on it as well, and put a nice sharp edge on here and here, so anyone who's coming at us should go up this. It's not it's sort of a ground scraping wedge, it's not a proper flappy wedge. Maybe I'll regret that, we'll see. Need to cut my locking bar holes as well, and we're getting our plastic next week from plastic company, the plastic people. They'll be supplying that. Good. Let's do some welding. Now is the top armour. Got two triangles and a long plate at the back that we're going to put on. I'm going to hold them on with these. So what I'm going to do is capture the nut, and then the bolt can go through. So I'm going to make some things a bit like this. This one hasn't worked because the holes don't quite line up, but a little bit of angle iron with a nut welded to the bottom. It's a lock nut with a bit of nylon inside, but obviously that gets more melted when I weld it on. So I weld that nut in place onto a bit of this. Might need another triangle on the side just to give it a bit more strength, and then these will go there, there and there, and then the plate sits on there, and then we'll have a few on the back as well for the back piece. Been making these, so I'm lining a nut up, drilling through it to make the hole, then drilling the hole larger, putting a bolt through it, putting the nut on, and then tightening it up, and then welding the nuts in place. And I'm sort of trying to do it a bit Henry Ford style, so that I don't do, one per half hour. I'm just going to drill all the holes, widen all the holes, weld all the nuts on as a bit of a production line. But I've only done 3 because I'm not quite confident I'm doing it right. So I'm going to chop all these off now, and we'll just check that they work. And if they do, I'll make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7-ish, 7, 8, 9 more. Let's get chopping. So these work quite well. The bolts will go through. They haven't all seized up or bent or got rubbish in the threads or anything. So that's good. So now I'm going to get my triangles. I've got these pre-cut, laser cuts. They fit on there quite nicely. A little bit of overhang there. I'll grind that off. I had to make a little slot there for the ears to go in. So I've made a little notch. I made a little mark where the centre of the holes are on all the sides. So now I can take this away and I will pop these in, hold them in, centralise them on the hole, and then tack weld them in initially into these 3 places, check they're still lining up. Then I'm going to have to check that all the batteries and speed controllers and stuff can still get in even with these in the way. I think they will. I think it'll be alright, because that speed controller there goes in that way. These batteries, that one will be fine because it's just out of the way, but these batteries come up against this wall and then slide in and then go upright, so this one here might be an issue. If it is, it'll be fine. I can just move it to there and we'll plasma cut a hole in the top, and then this side will be alright as well because there's nothing really going in here. Just got a load of empty space. So let's tack weld. Tack weld. So these two have gone in great, and this one was that one that I said hadn't worked because I didn't drill a hole big enough, so I was not careful enough and I put in one that doesn't work, so I'm going to have to pull that out. That's why we only tack weld it, so I'll rip that out and I'll put in one of the ones that works, and the hole lines up nicely, so I'm sure it'll work. That looks pretty cool. Looks better than the old one did, because the old one fought Thor in its first fight and it never really was the same again. So now we'll change that, bash out that side, although I think I've got to make some more. I've got 2 more. 2 there, so I've got to make 2 more. Cool. Here's my production line. So I've marked out these holes just by putting little divots in with the drill going through the bolt. So I put 1 bolt down, drill through the middle, then put another bolt to the side of it, so I know how much space I need, and then move that bolt. Keep going. So I've got 8 of them, or 9, or however many I needed along there. Now I'll drill all the way through with this size, and then I'll drill all the way through with this size, and then I'll go weld all the nuts on. You should note it's important that your workplace has got trip hazards, pieces of pipe that are the same colour of the floor that you can stand on, and pieces of off-cut metal at thigh height that will they're actually resting underneath another heavy piece of metal, so they won't move, but they are extremely sharp on the end. Where I cut the what did I cut out of there? Oh, the bits that go under the wedge. Out of, and that's just at the sort of height of your femoral artery, so that could be very nasty. I'll leave that there, and I'll come and do some welding. I'll weld these nuts on here now, and then we'll put the bolts through and cut them all off, and then we should be able to put them in. Right, there they all are. All in place. Just shake them all down and weld them all on.
Package up the records and you send me, spare me, care me, gather up the bones and then repair me. Ow, 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 ow. Pain, put me together, together, together again, together again. Please will you help me? I got a hole where a hole shouldn't be. A hole shouldn't be. Tell me, let me, package up the record and you send me, spare me, care me, gather up the bones and then repair me. Ow, 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 ow.
So the back's cut. It's a little bit oversized. I did that deliberately so that I can now trim it back down. It's pretty good. Squares up this end. Doesn't go quite tight in there, so it needs a little bit cut off here. It needs a bit cut off here where the bulkheads are. I expected that though, and then I think this will close up when those bits have been taken off, and then I'll be able to square that off. Yeah, so with a bit of trimming, we've got it all on now. So I've just knocked it off, but the back fits nicely. Got plasma cut some holes in it as well. Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 holes in the back. And it tucks just under there. That's where the links will come through for the power.